Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing a limitation on the number of people that may gather in one location, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. Specific information such as instructions and guidelines for remote by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend can be found on the town website at www.yarmouth.ma.us. For the public portion of this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or listen and participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner. Watch a live stream on Yarmouth's YouTube channel. Audio, video, and screen sharing functions will be disabled during the public session. Request to participate by using the raise hand function. You may also listen to the meeting by calling in on the telephone, either at 1-253-215-8782 or 301-715-8592, and enter the meeting ID 867-0025-3289, password 354114. You may also submit comments to the town using the following email: publiccomment@yarmouth.ma.us. No in-person meeting of the public will be permitted during this meeting. The measure stated above follow the emergency order for remote participations. Meetings will be broadcast on Channel 18 as soon as possible after the close of the meeting. And to open up the meeting of August 19, 2020, 6 p.m. of the Yarmouth Finance Committee, I'd ask the chairman to have someone make a motion open up, and then followed by roll call. Oh, I got to get you up.
Was that?
There should have been an email invite.
Any idea when it went out?
The other day it did. I'm not sure whether it was Monday. I've never seen it.
I thought I saw it too.
You do it from this, can't you, from G?
Yeah, you just have to do it.
Actually,
You know how he's been doing so much with the school.
Zoom on.
Ken Jinks wrote to Jerry after our meeting. They can't foresee anything happening before September of 21.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
It was set tonight. So Kent was part of the meeting.
No, but Jerry had reached out to him and he said, I reached out to Ken, I haven't heard back.
Mm.
So he heard back and they said, nothing this year. It's going to be the case for almost everything.
We'll have to go to Lowe's to get lights.
Either hopefully we can like get the equivalent of a track light bar
Mhm.
and clip pendants on it,
Mhm.
or something that has, I've seen them in pictures, the connection box is there and then it's a bar that comes over and then the lights come down, so you don't have to worry about holes and stuff.
We'll see what we can do.
Show you what I've seen.
Some other day.
I'll have to make everything up real good and paint it first.
Yeah.
Take that thing.
Yeah.
No, it's live. No mute.
All right, I'm going to open the meeting, looking for a roll call vote. Jack?
Oh, wait a minute. Jack's muted. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Mute on. I can do that.
Yeah, you want to unmute everybody.
All right, Jack, are you here?
Here.
George?
Here.
Sharon? I'm sorry, Nate?
Yeah, here.
Sarah?
Here.
Stephanie?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
And myself. All right, open the meetings. We don't have the minutes this time, so we're going to pass and do minutes in the next meeting. Last time we ended up Stephanie is still working on financial items for the Board of Selectmen workshop. So do you want to, you can either do it from there and I'll mute myself
That sounds good.
because I don't see you on this. So you didn't zoom in.
Oh, yeah,
Change Zoom.
are you? But so, you know what, let's see a panelist here. Oh, there she is. Attendee. I got to promote her.
Doesn't look like it's.
Nope, you're coming in now.
video. Here we go.
She should be up.
Okay.
Yep. Down at the bottom.
All right. Stephanie, I'm going to mute everybody and then unmute you, okay?
Okay, it says you cannot start your video because the host stopped it.
Unmute.
No, go to, yeah, more. Yeah. No, she should be.
Yeah.
Still have that background TV.
Okay, should be able to go. Can you go?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I guess you just can't see me. Because we can't get the video to work.
Volume down, Robert, that's all.
You just say, hold on, I'm trying to still figure out. No, you're right. There's no way, I don't understand how to, I don't know how to get your video going.
That's okay if the video is not going. I just don't want the feedback. Or I could just switch spaces with you.
No, no, you're good, hold on. Here we go.
No, you should be okay. I'm silenced. I don't get it.
Okay.
Right, Stephanie, you can unmute yourself.
Yep. Can you unmute? There you go.
All right, we can hear you.
Okay. So I just have a few more questions. So Dan, you may or may not be able to answer this, maybe more of a question for our DPW department head, but so getting into the selectmen's goals, maintain high quality infrastructure, roads, cemeteries, water resources, parks, estuaries, watersheds, recreational facilities, and other town resources and assets. Talking in particular about Route 6A roadway infrastructure improvements. I'm just curious to the extent to which climate change mitigation is integrated in this effort.
So I would say that, can people hear me? Just nod yes, no. Nobody else's pictures.
Nobody's pictures are shown.
Yeah.
So-
George, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
You're not. We should be on Zoom. We're unmuted, so. Hello? I just need to verify that people can hear me on the other side. George or Sarah, are you able to hear me?
This is George. I can hear you.
Oh, you know what? Hold on.
Yeah, you're loud and clear here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So part of our municipal vulnerability planning project that we went through called MVP, probably 18 months or 2 years ago, we have a plan, a multi-hazards mitigation plan as it relates to all these things. And so when we undertake certain projects, public works related projects, particularly around stormwater right now, the impacts of climate change and what they modeling could be on a coastal community is incorporated into that. So we go after like particularly culvert projects in the future, it'll be like revetment wall projects. Well, it'll be calculated as it relates to what are those models have shown for us in this part of the country here. So
Okay.
it prioritizes what, stormwater and coastal improvements.
So any of these, so what you're saying is the improvements that are listed on this list would be prioritized according to?
If we put a project plan in front of you for funding, it'll have a priority as it relates to. We wouldn't put something in front of you if it didn't have a highest level of priority for us.
Highest level climate change priority?
Well, it was, so if it's a public works related issue with stormwater, that would be the case for sure. Or it's an area that we're already experiencing flooding with.
Uh-huh.
So.
Okay, I'm just curious because I've seen some modeling out of the Provincetown Center for Coastal Studies about areas that are due to get a lot of flooding, and the north side is definitely one of them. So, I mean, I would just say, like, it's kind of like when we're doing wastewater, like, and, you know, we're tearing up the roads, we might as well also do any other kind of infrastructure that's going on. That's just kind of the
Yeah.
guiding principle that I have in mind.
Unfortunately, these projects tend to be really expensive, so when we do one, they are few and far between typically. Because it's not like we have a stash of money around. So as a, for instance, like we looked at in Robert's neighborhood, he's got an area in his neighborhood prone to flooding on the south side. But to fix that problem is an enormously large expense item because of the road elevation. The seawall is already kind of like substandard anyways in that location. So that wouldn't be a fix that we could easily make to reduce or the likelihood that flooding continues to occur in his neighborhood. It's just a real problem financially.
Yeah, I'm not asking in terms of, you know, frequency or anything like that. I'm just saying if there's going to be an expense and work's going to be done and it potentially could be undermined by the, you know, effects of climate change, that would be something we would want to know from a planning
Yeah,
perspective.
so if it's a project that involves like modeling that needs to be done like for a 100-year flood or 500-year flood, and it's part, like the bridge project is a good example of that. So that bridge was designed, and I don't have the specific details here, but it's designed to accommodate flooding to a certain standard, whether it's a 100-year, 500-year flood. It's designed to the standard that is required to be for today's planning. The bridge on Parker Rivers, on the Parker River, as a for instance.
Yeah, but a 100 or 500-year flood is different than just sea level rise. That's a result of.
No, I understand, but it's the hydraulics is this, you know, it's, so that culvert size was designed such that it will accommodate flow up and down the river for the foreseeable future based on the models that were in front of the engineers. So.
Okay. Do we have anyone in town who's responsible for taking a look at
Absolutely.
climate change?
We have a professional engineer,
Okay.
yeah, and the conservation coordinator.
Okay. Great. Yeah, to whatever extent possible, I would just, again, if there's any chance that we're expending money and then, you know, potentially it gets wasted through climate change, that's not necessarily the best use of dollars. So to whatever extent we can kind of plan for that. When considering the streetlights,
Yep.
to what extent would we be either offering that and charging for private roads, or
As far as,
conversion of streetlight
Yep.
controllers?
yeah. So we would only have control over those streetlights that we actually own. So, you know, theoretically, a streetlight on a private road, we might not own that. It depends upon how if it was ever deeded over to the town.
Mhm.
So sometimes some private developments continue to maintain their own.
Mhm.
I don't know that particular answer, how it lays out here, but we would only be dealing with town-owned street lamps.
Okay. And I'm just curious, you know, when I worked for Cleon, we did a lot of work on private road issues.
Yeah,
And I know that there's generally people buy into neighborhoods not necessarily realizing
Yes.
that they own that.
true enough.
So you know what that's like. So
Yep.
I'm just wondering, is there any opportunity for revenue in terms of, you know, replacing things, taking ownership of them and charging back to the taxpayers there?
In the on the lamps situation specifically?
Or in anything relative to private
Normally,
roads?
if we take those on, they end up being more of a cost center for us. Normally, you wouldn't want to you get a layout order, you find out what the layouts are. If the properties aren't easily deeded over to the town,
Mhm.
that has to be done. The other issue with that is typically you don't want to take over a road that doesn't meet whatever the town subdivision standard is at the time. Otherwise, you're stuck with any future problems. If it's got drainage problems, we're stuck with it. So normally at this point in time, unless it's a, you know, kind of a development that is new and it meets those modern standards for subdivision, you probably want to stay away from taking ownership. There's probably not enough road mileage in those private roads to be able to get a dollar value investment back on the Chapter 90 road calculation. So it's kind of it's a tough spot where you're in if you're on one of those roads and it's in really tough shape. There's no question. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't, since I've been here though for 3.5 years, I'm not aware of any neighborhood that's presently on a private road that has asked for anything more than, and we have a couple that asked for like grading services, but that's about it. So there really hasn't been a clamoring to have the town take over a road. We do a pretty good job with maintenance of it where we can. Of course, we move the snow around for them and all that stuff, so.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely other towns on the Cape that's it's like 40% of the
Oh,
town is
yeah.
private
Yeah,
roads.
yeah,
It's a real challenge.
Yeah.
I was just curious if there was any kind of revenue generation opportunity as part of that. Okay, so under public safety, so again, so looking at the fire department, looking at feasibility of a building, et cetera, not within a flood zone.
Yep.
So I'm also just in that vein of flood zone,
Mhm.
climate change, wondering if there has been any stock taken of town buildings that are besides this one.
Yeah, no, so we know where the zones are, and, it's so typically, like, when you have an opportunity, and we're planning the library project now, a new building project, we would not want to put it in a flood zone,
Mhm.
So the library is looking at a centralized location, not in the flood zone. Stations 1 and 2 are in a flood zone. A replacement potentially for those would occur in the center part of town, not in a flood zone. So when possible, yeah, absolutely. We don't want to build any more assets inside a flood zone.
And I'm just curious, what would we do in terms of dispossessing the land? I mean, who's going to want to buy in a flood zone?
Well, so that's a really good question. Periodically, we have a number of neighborhoods in town that we know are problems, particularly with groundwater. We don't have a pipe distribution system to channel away stormwater. So a number of residents in these neighborhoods, they get frustrated because when the water table's high, and then we get some rain, we can't get rid of it, and there's no way to get rid of it really. So the theory would be that if you had an aggressive dispossession program, you would reach out to those people that are in these low-lying neighborhoods, and Captain's Village is one that I know we have recurrent problems there. And you would have like an agreement of right of first refusal when the property becomes available potentially. But as a matter of policy issue, unless it fulfills some sort of town strategic goal, you would say, is just getting the house off the tax rolls a strategic goal so that we don't get any more complaints from that property owner? Is that what we're after? Or does it assist in the neighborhood itself, the dispersal, say, of runoff water or stormwater or whatever, So there's a couple of spots that I've seen that, yeah, probably more than likely, if we had funds available, and we went after those properties, that would go a long way to giving stormwater more places to sink back in the ground. Part of the challenge here, though, of course, is we've had in the last couple of years historically high groundwater levels, coupled with the rain that we've had. There's just nowhere for it to go. Now, it's going to be interesting this year because we're in kind of like a drought phase. I haven't asked Public Works to give me like an update as to where does our groundwater presently sit today comparative to like the last couple of years average. I want to say 2018 was like a record high, and last year continued to be high. So it'll be interesting to see if the drought made any impact on the groundwater.
Okay, thank you. Under the police department, so just curious, both with regards to number 1 and number 2, if there is any kind of, I know that I didn't watch the last selectmen's meeting, but I know that there's at least an awareness that there's a bill moving through the legislature having to do with police reform.
What's number 1 and number 2?
Modify existing command structure and allow for additional on-the-street supervision at the sergeant level, additional training.
Okay.
And then number 2 is continue to utilize grants to fund social work and mental health needs.
Yeah, we do that now.
So
going back to number 1? Yeah.
So
go back to number 1. So we had a study done, I think it was now almost 3 years ago, that identified that the supervisory level at the sergeant's level, they could use some more training as it relates to utilization of patrol staff and supervision on a regular basis. And also they identified that there should be more senior supervision overnight particularly, and so that would fall into the responsibility level of the lieutenants. And so what the police management has proposed is that they, at certain shifts, they reduce a patrolman's one patrol position and replace it with a senior sergeant, with a sergeant position, so that that level of supervision is there on a regular basis. And also the lieutenants now do a more active rotation through the different shifts through the day, because the lieutenants typically work during the day. But now they, because of the study that was done, they have more visibility as it relates to the role that the lieutenants play at night. So as a matter of fact, today we were with a couple of lieutenants, and the call volume that they're getting on the weekends and after hours and overnight from the supervisory sergeant is more than it's ever been. So it seems to be working good, that they're available, they're on call on a regular basis, they're being called into for their, you know, their judgment on a variety of different things. It seems to be now more than ever. So
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious about number 2, the utilize grants to fund social work and mental health.
yeah, so a couple of years ago, we got, I think it's, I forget exactly the phrase, but there was 2 grants that we got to the U.S. Justice Department. One was related to a social worker. So we have a social worker available to the staff, and so that calls, like particularly with substance abuse, are handled through the staff with the social worker. And then there's a specific grant that funds a position related to violence against women and domestic abuse. So that grant helps to better identify and be more proactive as it relates to domestic abuse cases that are occurring in town, and the follow-up that needs to occur with those. Many of these cases, it's tempting, like in police business, to have like a one-off interaction, but the reality is if somebody's in a domestic abuse situation or even a drug substance abuse situation, the amount of hours needed to appropriately ameliorate that situation are many. And so these civilians allow us to provide more hour time on those cases than we would be able to do with patrolmen.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of helping things out, the police department has a like a mental health crisis intervention team of very specially trained police officers to help engage in that situation where you have citizens that have these challenges in front of them. So we try to, without having a mental health, like a town department addressing, you know, so mental health and substance abuse, we've cobbled together between YPD, the health department, and funding grants that we've talked about before with Gosnold and the visiting nurses and all that. We have this like loose framework of social services available that is a pretty good catch net for what we're doing. Is it the best it could be? Probably it isn't, but it's better than, you know, not doing anything at all. And we've tried to do it as cost effectively as possible when in fact, I don't know what the present codes are, but I would be willing to bet that a high percentage of YPD calls have some mental health or substance abuse component associated with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's better than a lot of departments are doing. Okay, I was just curious through the lens of the conversation that's happening in this country.
So
right now,
we continue to, you know, if the grants are expiring, we would reapply for those. And there would be an expectation, I would think, that if we did not get the current funding, there'd be an ask to continue to fund those some way or some shape or form.
And do you know if there's ever been any discussions amongst the Town Administrators Association or the Chiefs Association and like Barnstable County Human Services to kind of pool all of those, you know, funds and requests so that you'd have like
Yeah,
one
central.
central?
To what degree those conversations have gone, I'm not aware, but I do know that, you know, presently for our day-to-day functioning in town, it's not going on like we're in charge of our own people type of idea. You know, we've had recurrent conversations over the years with Barnstable about this population that goes between the towns and what is it we can do better together as it relates to managing the issues associated with it. And it could be housing too, throw that in there on that particular topic, and we need to be better about that. In many of the towns, we'll use like the visiting nurses or Gosnold. They'll do exactly what we're doing. So because of the HIPAA stuff and privacy behind all this stuff, those intermediaries are better able to identify or answer those questions as it relates to how do we deal with people Cape-wide as opposed to as an individual town. I think based on what I've seen, and how difficult it can be just in general to get mental health services and some of these other services. We're in a era where you'd like to be able to do more. We're doing quite a bit, and it would be quite an effort, I think, for any individual town to do more than it's doing. And I'm not sure if the county would be able to do much more based on their present staffing without a huge amount of money to take care of it.
No, I just thinking the economies of scale.
Yeah,
Okay, I had a couple other minor things, but I don't want to like hold the whole meeting hostage.
but I mean, if you go back like 30 years ago, right, we weren't even probably having these conversations in these communities really, you know? So
No.
all of the monies and funds expended to date and the grants to date, I think maybe with the exception of violence against women, which has been out there for a number of years, and victim witness advocates and whatnot, they're probably, you know, this is one of those, the problem has presented itself. It took a while to identify it, took a while to identify a strategy. Now we're applying resources and assets to it. And like anything else, it's a cost center that there's no way to have a revenue stream, if you will, to offset it. It's just, it is what it is. It's part of being in a community. It's caring for those that need to be cared for, you know?
Mhm.
And it's our job, apparently, so.
I guess the last question I really was curious about is, you know, I know one of the goals and sort of main kind of guiding strategies for the town when it comes to spending is paying into OPEB.
Yeah,
I'm just curious to what, if any degree, there's been conversations as far as like the shifts in income, to what degree we might want to consider putting a pin in that.
yeah, so, I mean, there's been periodic conversation, not really in depth at the board level on doing something different with that, but to date, they've held the line on paying the ARC, the annual required contribution. I think if we're in a protracted financial situation like we're in now, and it goes on for a period of time, it becomes more likely than not that the ARC payment would probably be on the chopping block and divert the funds to something else, yeah.
I was curious about that, and then I guess the last thing that I'll just, you know, just a curiosity on my part is, as far as clean water, I'm really glad wastewater is in, up front as far as a goal, but I also just would consider that part of clean water. It's
Yeah, so we wanted to be careful with clean water in that the message is more along, we have a lot of freshwater points. We have, stormwater, drinking water, and wastewater. And so together we kind of just encapsulated it with, we'd like to be able to provide the cleanest possible water available as opposed to just focusing on wastewater. Because all these things, like, for instance, some of the work that we're doing on the plan, like Parker's River Bridge is an example, but even the bike trail to some degree, the bike trail bridge over by Route 6, that improves water quality through improved flushing of the embayments behind it. So we open up the channels, it allows water to come through. So when we're looking to solve, in this particular case, the nitrogen issue, we're trying to do it with remedies that don't just default to sewer pipes, And one of the big ones that would do an awful lot of good for us is if we could get the state to do the viaduct, the bridges over Route 6 over, and continue opening up that channel. That would take care of a lot of the problems we have upriver there. So it's kind of like a holistic strategy, because as you clean all those sources too, you'll clean up a lot of your inland waterways too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Okay, that was pretty much it for my questions.
If, by the way, so to that point, if any time you have an area, and you'll see some of this when the department heads come in for their budget reviews, if you give me like a laundry list of questions that you'd like of an area of interest, I can certainly send that to you, send that to them, get the answers to you, and then queue them up to come give you a quick overview of where they're at as they get ready for their budgets or something like that.
That would be great.
They're very much willing to share their story with you.
And, I'm sorry, I had one other question. With regard to the Council on Aging.
Yeah.
Clearly impacted by COVID. I guess, I don't know what uses there could be other than for seniors, but has there been any discussion about making it available for other community uses while seniors aren't going there.
Yeah, so
Again, as a
right
revenue
now,
stream.
yeah, because town buildings in general, except for this one, are closed to the public in the police lobby. We haven't really gotten off the block on that as it relates, although we did come up with a plan during these very hot stretches to have them set up as cooling centers. Having the big ballroom area set up that way. So there hasn't really been, if the building is down and nobody's in it, I don't have to pay extra money to clean it. That's part of the problem. We're spending an awful lot of money disinfecting areas where people have been.
Right.
So we're trying to avoid as much as possible that scenario from happening, and except for in the buildings that we obviously have to disinfect.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking like more of, food distribution.
So
center or
distribution
something
is
like
done,
that.
yeah, it's all done by carry-go bags, they make the lunches at DY and they do it, I think at the last time I checked, they were doing over 100 a day at the Council on Aging facility, so.
Yeah, okay. There's just over the summer, I know that there was something going on with Camp Wingate Kirkland, needing a place because they had been using the Cape Codder, and then the Cotter reopened. And I mean, obviously summer lunch
Yeah.
stuff is over with, but
Yeah.
I just had that on my mind, and I thought if there's an opportunity to either give back to the community in some way or generate some revenue, I would bring it up.
Yeah,
And that's it. Thank you.
okay.
Okay, moving on. That was a continuation of 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago? Last week? A week ago's Board of Selectmen workshop meeting. But I had something I wanted to bring to the team. Could I see that, Stephanie, real quick? Because it kind of goes along with me with the workshop. Sure. I'm going to flash it on the screen so everybody's going to get a look. Can everybody hear me okay?
I started to make some notes. I didn't.
One of the things that we were talking, this is reverse, right?
Yeah.
Is it because we're in
Okay,
a,
wait. No, it's not.
is it read? Can you read it?
You can read it.
We don't have the technology to share right now. But what I was working on was a poll that we could work with the selectmen and try to get some information from residents and taxpayers on all these things that we have coming up and where we are now. What I got out of it was I felt uncomfortable. I felt like I was guessing a little bit at where people were in their, what was important to them and how they were handling this COVID situation. So I threw that out there to see basically how the team thinks about asking the selectmen or to put something in front of them saying we need feedback from the town to get a better handle on so many of these expenses that are going on.
So this is Sarah.
Sarah, were you going to say
but
something?
Yeah, I like that idea. I've always a
Oh, you
big
gotta
fan
bring your
of, like,
volume up.
polling the public, but like I can't see what you put together. So
Yeah, can you mouse over to the volume?
That one?
all right.
No, it's this one right here.
I don't think anyone
That
can
one,
hear
two of the
me.
X's. Probably wanted to go about halfway up.
Go ahead, Sarah. Can you hear me now?
So I like that idea. I'm always a big proponent of like people giving us their input on things like that and having a better idea of what's going on. But like I couldn't tell what you were trying to show us. So my only thing would be like, can you share whatever draft you're going to send over to the select board for comment before you actually do it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thanks.
Right now, I'm just looking for concept discussion.
Well, did you identify like the questions you were asking or no?
Yeah, can you like read it out loud or something?
Well, it just starts off with the Town of Yarmouth fiscal year 2020 opinion poll. My first thought was just how are people being affected by COVID? 5 or 6, 10 different scales. One is, I was being humorous, but what is COVID? And the last one being something along the lines of COVID has caused long-term financial problems, which may cause loss of housing, job, or transportation. So I'm trying to get a scale on how people are handling this pandemic and what's going on in the town. And then after that, I went to articles and other town expenses that have already been approved. So these are Proposition 2.5 overrides or articles that have already been approved and how they're going to have an effect on you if you own an average home. So I picked schools, don't go by my numbers being 100% accurate because this all has to be worked out with Ed and everything. But the new school on an average home, I've been hearing is going to cost $35 to $40 or something. So if we give people a list of those things that are already passed, that we know are coming but haven't really hit yet, and then we could ask them to list in order of preference what's your most important things to you? Wastewater, water improvements, coastal improvements, ME Small, library, police department, new building, new fire department, new library. I mean, we've got several $100,000, not millions, several $100 million worth of projects coming online. And I personally don't know which ones people think are most important to them. Does that help, Sarah?
Yeah. So always with these surveys, like, so CCYP just did a big Cape-wide survey on like specifically how COVID has impacted the young professional population. And we got a lot of very, very positive feedback on that. And I see how this needs to be town specific, and I get where you're going with it. I'm just worried that people are a little bit surveyed out right now. So just keep that in mind before we go and like get this. Cause I do, and I also am kind of not sure on how much of those projects that you listed. Some of them I thought we already have in the pipeline and like we're being funded and like going forward with them, whereas some of them are still pipe dreams. So that's the only other thing is like, I want to be sure that like you're not asking people like what their opinion is on something that can't be walked back.
Oh yeah, no, this is a straightforward opinion poll. This has no merit or binding effect in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, you know, just so you know, I think some of those topics will end up being worked into. We have an article that we passed probably in 2019's town meeting for visioning, townwide visioning effort. Like, and that's, you can reach out in the neighborhoods to find out, hey, you know, where do you think the town should be going over the next 10 years, 15 years or whatever. So some of those items will end up probably being a component of that visioning as it relates. So like, for instance, you know, if we had a sizable parcel of property known as Mattakey's Middle School, what kind of reuse would you envision our town focusing on for that location? So some of those things will likely occur or be seen or be asked of the population sometime this fall. So.
Is it,
How are you going to put the survey out?
Well, no, actually, this was something I plan on taking to Dan and the selectmen and saying, we want the information, but it's not our job to go get it.
Well, we do have an opportunity at with the upcoming fall town meeting to be able to personally distribute it. We can have distribution electronically in advance of that. I mean, clearly, depending upon what method you use, you know, I mean, the COA is not open right now, but that's a classic place to be able to provide surveys for there. The libraries, I'm hoping after Labor Day will be open soon. So a variety of different means could be used to get a survey like that out, and you know, whatever biases occur, they are what they are on that type of situation based on the audience. So if we were to code them as, we could code them as to, you know, where we distributed them to, so when they came back to us, we would know, you know. But it all depends on how you want, how much level of energy or effort you want to put into that. I mean, electronic surveys, the population that would be open to respond electronically could be different than what's going to the COA or what's going to the library, say, for instance.
Yeah, because as you get older, the computer gets harder.
Not even when you're old.
Okay, the only other thing I knew was, or I was going to ask Dan about, is have you heard anything back from Ken or Carol on how the schools are
Yeah.
handling their budget?
Their
And how
budget?
it's going to affect us, because we ultimately have to
Yeah.
pay for any of their overruns.
So,
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sorry, I thought if we're good, stay on the same topic for just a moment though. I did have some feedback.
Okay,
Um,
you have to unmute yourself, and then I think
Sure.
we have to get rid
Yeah,
of
we
the
have to go
sound.
back off the sound.
Try that.
Okay, can folks on here hear me?
Without anybody's photos, they can't give us a
can't,
thumbs
I
I
up.
can't give a thumbs up. You can give a virtual thumbs up. I think it's popping up. So I just took a crack at some questions that I thought would be important if we were to do it. I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable approaching such a survey. I've worked in politics a lot, and I've done a lot of work on polling, and I found that you can always like end up getting kind of the results that you want to get if you craft it the right way. And I kind of worry that's what we would be delving into, just in terms of framing it specifically around like what kind of property tax relief would you want, and like as opposed to if we did a little bit more broadly and we said generally, how serious of a threat, health threat to you or your family or someone in your household is COVID. Generally, how has COVID affected you or your family financially? And you can have everything from lost significant income to lost income, but have since regained employment to no loss. Services that you or your family need. And because I think this is an important thing for us to know. If people in town really need emergency rental assistance or food assistance, and also in there we can weave in property tax relief, but it's not blatantly sticking out. And then I do like the idea of kind of saying several upcoming projects have fiscal needs associated with them. Please rank in the order of importance to you. I don't know. I feel a little iffy about putting the dollar amounts next to them of what they would be.
Well, so the other challenge with that would be if without having an opportunity to explain why. So you might say something
Right.
like, well, fire station in the central part of town, well, why would I want to do that? It looks like everything's good here, So
Need
without knowing
summaries
the
underneath
backstory,
every
that gets a little bit complicated if you do it like that.
Yeah, so we could just kind of limit it to that piece. And also with having CPA, I mean, that's, I feel like, again, that's something that would need a lot of explanation going along with it. But I mean, I like the idea, so I'm happy to email these to either Dan or yourself.
So my thought was really to bring it up again to Dan and to the, am I getting feedback?
Sorry.
To the selectmen and see how they wanted to handle it. Whether, I don't necessarily believe they would put it back in our court.
No, they might just say they like the idea.
Right.
You follow up
Yeah.
with that. That was
And,
type of idea.
If not, I take that as a motion from Stephanie that she wants to be the chairman of the
Be careful what you
poll.
Yeah.
We'll take it up for the next meeting, maybe.
I'll second that motion.
You're welcome. Yeah, all right, we're all done with that. So now, exactly. So the only other thought I was, has anybody reached out to Ken and Carol?
Well, so
Preliminary.
not specifically, they are under the auspices that I think DESC said they're good for 6 months based on the funding sources that the state's identified. So nobody's looking out beyond that.
Okay.
But they're going to be in front of the board on the 25th to talk a little bit about
Same days we are,
the reopening plan. So we can take that can be an add-on question like, what's the relative fiscal forecast for you,
And other than that, I am opening it up to the rest of the board if they had any new business they wanted to throw on the table. I'm still before transfer.
Okay, all right.
I know you're gonna get nervous. I didn't pass transfer.
I don't need one. I just want to explain something. That's all.
Was there,
So yeah, I just with
do you want me in? Okay. We can go.
Just with regards, though, to the schools, I am definitely going to be very curious, to what extent they have a plan A and a plan B as far as in person versus virtual and what the cost associated with that are going to be. I just can't imagine that we're not going to end up going back virtually, and I hope we're planning for it.
I agree.
We're going to find out.
All
Yeah.
right, thank you.
So seeing no one else unmuting themselves, I'm gonna take Dan into a transfer.
Thank you.
Brought us,
Whoa,
information
why
last
not?
week.
Yep. So back on April 8th, 2020, Rich came in front of you to ask for articles of transfer in the total sum of $225,851.63 from various encumbered IT articles that have been passed at previous town meetings. Well, as I mentioned to you before, I get your recap as to what it is, and this is going to go out to you by email tomorrow. But so the total modified ask, because you had asked for Rich to provide a breakdown of what the dollar value is, the total dollar value of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items on his original list that had 7 items is $198,904.38. So it breaks out like this: $10,346 for a remote server project that had been started but had not been finished. It's now been completed. $14,076.94 for wireless network extension. So Wi-Fi related hardware to improve the town's wireless capabilities, which as you can imagine is pretty important these days. Part of the biggest knock around town had been many devices have been deployed, but there was no significant Wi-Fi. So where we enhanced it was at the golf courses and the beach fronts so that the like the beach attendants can operate their electronic devices there to check people in and whatnot. Another big one was what's referred to as server virtualization. That was $50,000. It combines more than 10 physical devices into a virtual survey array. So we were trying to get out of the business of expensive hardware to operate the town IT infrastructure. So that project's been completed. Fire dispatch service, there was an upgrade needed there. That's been completed. The number there was $28,078.78. And then an ongoing one, and this is kind of complicated, but I'll do the best that I can to explain it. For $99,452.19. What we identified in that we had gotten a virus a number of years ago that came into one of our departments and really froze up one of our main servers, if you will, and has forever corrupted the information that was on that server. But that virus attack identified for us a serious safety or security shortcoming in the town network. And a response to that was to do something called subnetting. So that for now on, and we're about halfway through this project, every remote location outside of town hall becomes its own hardened, if you will, for lack of a better phrase, IT operation. So if the golf department gets hacked on their through their electronic means, it stops right at golf. In the past, it could have a hacker could easily access the golf system and gotten into town hall potentially. So golf, police, the 3 fire stations, COA, DNR, those all become their own islands of security, if you will, all in an effort to safeguard town hall. And for that matter, all the other interconnected information technology locations that we have. So that project is about halfway done now. And Rich had identified about $100,000 more needed to get that done. So
I remember that.
yeah, that was a big undertaking to be able. That will also, by the way, allow us to properly upgrade our phone system next year. We'll have a request in front of capital budget for an entire new phone system. Our phone system is presently going to be out of support. It's in its 6th year, and it's rapidly declining. So that's the detail on that grand request that was made back in April.
Any questions?
Gotta hit the sound.
Oh, am I still?
Are you on the sound? You got the sound.
I'm all right. You guys can hear me, right? Okay. So not seeing anybody unmuted, can I ask for a motion to accept the transfer as submitted?
I'll accept that motion.
Can I not hear Nate?
Well, you don't really need a motion. They were already signed off. Yeah, it's just more informational. You
Okay,
asked
I
for
thought,
detail.
oh, I thought
Yeah.
you were doing, oh, this is, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
They were speaking.
Yeah, I don't know why I can't hear them.
You turned down the volume so they could see?
I'm
No,
over
you're
halfway.
good.
I should be. All right.
Are they on mute?
Well, some of them are.
Unmute. Yes.
George, are you able to hear us?
I'm gonna unmute everybody.
I can hear you, but I don't think you hear me.
I can hear you now.
I just unmuted everybody.
Because I tried to keep us from going to beyond new business because I had something I wanted to discuss and nobody heard me.
Well, go ahead, George. We'll hear you now. I'm sorry.
Well, are we done with this issue?
Yeah, the transfer conversation's fine.
Okay. What I want to just mention is in relationship to these issues we're proposing to the Board of Selectmen, one of our items is that we are going to entertain a monthly revenue and expense review, whatever that means.
We generate a report, George, every month that shows.
No, I know, but I'd like to be more specific. You, Dan, provided about 2 weeks ago information to Richard, and he forwarded it to us. It was essentially something that came from the DOR, the Division of Local Services, and I found that very valuable. So I would encourage everybody to resurrect the email from Richard and Robert,
Okay.
take a look at that. There are just financial indicators that we should be focusing on. So there are 12 of them, and I think that if we're going to have a monthly review, it should be in the context of something like that. That's all I'm proposing.
Okay, I'm sure we can do that. Dan,
that-
so
Yeah.
if Dan's nodding, I'm good with it.
I gotta dig it out, that's all. Yeah.
That imposes a burden, however. Somebody has to come up with this report on
Well,
these.
Yeah, we might already do that in some shape or fashion. So let me take another look at it, George, and I'll get you out an
Yeah,
email.
I think I've seen a couple of them, and anyway, take a look at the material you sent. I think if we were to see that format on a monthly basis, we would be in a much better position to have a sense of the fiscal health of the town in light of that.
Okay.
Now, did I inadvertently mute anybody else for the rest of that meeting, or is a chance for you to say something? Because I think everybody,
They're all showing mutes.
I know, but I think they're by choice, right? I'm not seeing anybody that wants to have any other mention, so
I just have a question.
shoot.
So as far as,
Hold on, let me change this. No.
So I'm unmuted here. You just have to turn it down.
Good.
So I just have a question as far as what's the plan? What's the sort of next steps as far as?
Yeah, so, the document we worked on last week, I'll type that up and get that over to you as a committee so that you can present that to the board. And what I thought what we do to make it, because we have a spatial limitation down there, a number of people, is if I can get kind of like a head count, who would actually want to appear. We don't have any ability to do Zoom right now with that, but who would want to appear on behalf of the finance committee. And I'd prefer to kind of stay away from calling an actual meeting of the finance committee if we can avoid it. But
No quorum.
yeah,
a
no
couple
quorum,
reps.
but a couple of reps and present the document to the board.
It's the 25th is what they're talking
And
about.
then be like liaisons to the 25th, that's correct.
Okay.
And just kind of having a high level discussion with the board. And, one of the things we can talk about is the ARC. I can add the ARC to the conversation.
Mhm.
So, because that's all going to be important, building this year's budget, At what point do we need to know if,
Well, I assume Jack and George, you won't be coming. Right, George?
Right, I won't be. No.
Right.
Today's.
yeah, well, no, your volume is down again, so I'm not thinking you're going to hear them.
George, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I will not be among those there.
Yeah, so neither one of you will, Jack and George, I don't think either one of you would probably go to a hearing meeting, right, in person?
Right.
Right.
That leaves, well, Brian, Stephanie, any of you guys? Stephanie would like to come. I mean, I'm assuming I'm supposed to be there.
You're the chairman.
So that's two. I'm fine with two, or someone else can come.
It's
the 25th.
Next week.
We don't have an exact time. We just know
No,
it's
it'll
the
be somewhere
25th,
between like 6:30 and 7:30 probably.
midnight.
No.
Downstairs.
Downstairs, yeah.
How many?
Well, no more than, we can't have any more than 20.
25 anyways.
Well, yeah, with us.
Now, Brian doesn't have to be there. So, Sarah, do you want to go?
If there's a space limitation, then I can pass.
Well, we can hold you as an alternate. How's that?
That's
If there's-
fine.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
just let me know if you need me.
Yeah, if there's room, then we'll send you an email and say, yeah, there's plenty of room. Please come.
Yeah. I'm like 2 minutes away from town.
Okay. We'll know before then. Did you
yeah,
want-
I guess I'm just wondering in terms of how we're presenting it and how the format of the meeting is going to go.
It's going to be more a matter of, it'll be I'll type up what was generated. There could be some edits that we can have.
Yeah,
back
we'll
and forth.
massage that a little
Yeah.
bit. And then,
And then that'll be submitted to them in the packet, if you will, that gets generated. So they have that as a discussion item when they come in. Robert and whoever's with him will be there. And, and I'll cue it up as it relates. There's been over the years a number of opportunities for the finance committee to weigh in on some of these topics. And A lot of times it occurs as we're well underway with the budget process or after the fact. And, being mindful of the fact that some of these capital items continue to get kind of kicked down the road, we would like to have this opportunity for the board to consider before they make their budget directions to the town administrator, this information that's been discussed at a couple of meetings with the members. So something along those lines.
And you said we would have an opportunity to massage the.
Yeah, so I'll send out the document. I mean, it's essentially, what we worked on last week. And if there's an edit, I'd ask that when I do the editing, just send it to me and then I'll send it back, but not to everybody. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna ask about that.
yeah.
Now I have administrative items to be next meeting. Do we want to pick something? I always like to pick something as far as I can, because penciling it in now is much easier.
I want to say that based on the way the calendar lays out, the 7th is Labor Day, so you probably want to stay away from that.
Well, we have a Wednesday, the 9th of September.
Well,
We
that
could pencil
week,
one in
though.
for the 9th.
Or maybe would you rather go the 16th?
Does that hurt us that much? I mean, that's a long ways out.
It is, but there's not going to be a lot to report. I got a lot of
Oh,
vacations
let's do
coming
this.
up.
What if
and
we
all that
pencil the,
stuff.
are people okay penciling the 9th and the 16th? And we'll just cancel the 9th if there's nothing big?
Okay.
I won't be able to make the ninth, but that's fine.
Okay.
I prefer we stay away from the 9th.
All right, we can skip it and just go to the 16th. It's everybody, we should probably pen in the 16th.
Yeah.
though. 6 o'clock, Town Hall, FinCom.
And we'll have our, hopefully our Zoom operator back by then.
Yes.
This was brutal.
You did a great job, Dan. Thank you very
Zoom's
much.
not my specialty.
So I'm looking for maybe a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
Second. Excellent. We have to do this by roll call.
Yes.
Jack,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Nate,
Aye.
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Daphne,
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you. I want to stay.
Yeah, I don't want to adjourn.
2 seconds, Stephanie, first second.